the Torrington City Council. Good evening and welcome. We have here with us tonight Ryan Kaith from KERM, KGUS Radio. So this is being broadcast live and will also be up later on YouTube. We also have Miss Cindy Sheely from the Torrington Telegram here with us this evening. This is Tuesday, June 6th, 2023. This is the 11th council meeting of the year and the first council meeting in June. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I've asked Councilman Kelly to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Kelly. The next item on the agenda is the mayor's informational items. Mayor, council, and some executive city staff will be attending the WAM, Wyoming Association of Municipalities, summer meeting in Cody this week. There are many topics presented that directly relate to municipal government in Wyoming. Especially important this meeting is mandatory fiscal training that mayor and council and executive staff are required to have under a new statute passed by the legislature last session. This evening, I want to thank Tom Werkel, Dennis Estes, and Mike Lira for their hard work getting the municipal swimming pool up and running. We had an excellent opening on Saturday, May 27th. We have many Torrington children and adults already enjoying our local municipal swimming pool. We are blessed this year with great pool management. We have Cameron Stitt as manager, Tim Rudolph is assistant manager, and Tyne Stokes is head lifeguard. We are further blessed with an excellent contingent of local young people as lifeguards. Enjoy the municipal swimming pool. The wonderful spring rains continue, and we have so far avoided any severe weather. The sun is out, and with all the wet weather we've had, the weeds are abundant. I'd ask local residents and property owners to do their best to keep up with the weeds and avoid a visit from the code enforcement officers. We do have a beautiful city, and I'd ask all of us to do our part to maintain her. Thank you. Are we getting feedback? We'll take a short break while we try to adjust for feedback. All right, got the go-ahead. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from the May 16th, 23 council meeting as published.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion from Councilman Kelly to approve the consent agenda as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Victorin. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the consent agenda as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Ayes have it, the consent agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is the public forum. That is a point in the agenda wherein we allow people to fill out a form and place it in.
We need to approve the agenda first.
I'm sorry.
Mayor, I move to approve the agenda.
I have a motion from Councilman Kelly to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Councilman Patterson to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Deal. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving of the agenda as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, the agenda is approved. Thank you for catching that. Next item on the agenda is public forum, and as I was saying, that is an opportunity for citizens to fill out a form and place it in that basket to my left, and they will be given 2 minutes' time to address the council, although no action will be taken. I see that we have no takers for public forum this evening. Therefore, we'll move to the action items, and I would like to say this at the outset of items 1, 2, and 3. Without objection from council, after discussion of items 1, 2, and 3, perhaps we could just take a vote on all 3, if I have no objection, or we can take them one at a time. Okay, I don't hear any objections, so what I'd like to do is regarding items 1, 2, and 3, they are all 3 related to catering permit applications for the summer concert series. And last meeting, we approved 2 catering permit applications, and we have 3 here. So I would turn to Chief Johnson to inform us about the items under 1, 2, and 3, the 3 requests for catering permits.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is just the continuation for the other 3 catering permits to finish out the Music on Main concerts that, barring any more weather conditions, will continue every Wednesday night through June 28th. The conditions are all identical. I don't have concerns about any of the folks who have applied and their ability to meet the requirements that we've set forth. I think we'll have great, safe events, and a good time will be had by all. So I would recommend approval.
All right, thank you, Chief Johnson. Ms. Anaya, have these, the fees for these catering permits been paid?
They were.
Okay, so the chief recommends that we approve these. I think they've all had prior catering permits, although we have good experience with them. And Ms. Anaya informs us that the fees have been paid. Does council have any questions for the chief or for Ms. Anaya? Or comments?
No, I would move to approve the 3 permits.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilman Patterson to approve the 3 permits listed on the agenda as items 1, 2, and 3. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Victorin. Any further discussion, gentlemen, about items 1, 2, and 3? Hearing none, I'd call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the 3 catering permits on the agenda this evening signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, those 3 catering permits are approved. Thank you, gentlemen. Next item on the agenda is item number 4. This is for council consideration to designate project manager Mark Weiss as the 504 ADA compliance officer for the city of Torrington. Mrs. Strecker, do you have some knowledge?
Just a little background for us. So every 3 years, we have a compliance check through the USDA because we do have a loan through them for some repairs at the sewer ponds. And they do require us to have a 504 ADA compliance officer. And I'd like to just have that on the record with a motion, if I could. I did visit with Jeff, his supervisor, and the mayor, and Jim Eddington about this, and we all felt like he was the best and most knowledgeable to be able to deal with the ADA compliance.
Okay. Council, any questions for Mrs. Strecker? And I view this as sort of a housekeeping item, and I agree with all of you that Mark Weiss is the most appropriate person to appoint to this position. With that, I'd entertain a motion to approve his appointment as project manager for the 504 ADA compliance officer.
I would make the motion to approve, Mr. Mayor.
I have a motion from Councilman Deal to approve Mark Weiss as the 504 ADA compliance officer for the city of Torrington. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Kelly. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, I call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, that is approved to appoint or designate Project Manager Mark Weiss as the 504 ADA Compliance Officer for the City of Torrington. Next item on the agenda is item number 5, ordinance on third reading, establishing R6A zoning for tracks A-1 and A-2 of the Lopez Edition, second filing. Mr. Estes.
An ordinance amending and reenacting Section 18.16.020 of the Torrington Municipal Code, 2023 revisions relating to the City of Torrington, Wyoming, amending the zoning district map by establishing R6A zoning for a tract of land. Third and final reading.
Thank you, Mr. Eddington. Mr. Estes, did you have any information or comments on this?
Been no changes, I've had no comments, staff recommend approval.
Okay. Council, any questions for either Mr. Eddington or Mr. Estes? This is third reading.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve the zoning ordinance on third and final reading.
I have a motion from Councilman Victorin to approve the zoning ordinance on third reading as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a second from Councilman Patterson. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving this ordinance on third reading of the zoning ordinance signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, that ordinance is approved on third reading. Next item on the agenda is item number 6, ordinance second reading, 2024 fiscal year budget. Mr. Eddington, could you read that for us, please?
An ordinance providing for the appropriation of money by the City of Torrington, Wyoming to meet its general fund requirements and obligations, to meet its enterprise fund requirements and obligations for the 2024 fiscal year commencing July 1, 2023, and fixing the sum to be raised by taxation.
Thank you, Mr. Eddington. Mrs. Strecker?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. After our last work session on May 30th, I made adjustments to the budget that we talked about in that meeting. I do still have all of the wage recommendation adjustments to get in. Those take me a little longer. I did get most of them in today, and I'm reviewing everything, and I will get back to you on the third and final reading with the total numbers. So I also have one last look at the cash carryover here. After this check run, I will look at where the expenses are and where I think the budgets are gonna land at the end of the year, and then relook at cash carryover. I also need to calculate the administrative fee calculation. That's usually the very last step before I finish up the budget. So we're looking right now, all funds are above their carryover reserve target, and it does look really good right now. After we get the wages in, it does go down, but I think we're in a pretty good spot right now. So the general fund after transfers is at 1.1 million, and then after the reserve target, it's at a positive 201,000. So it's a considerable improvement over our last first reading. So, and all the other funds are above as well. So I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have. I also handed out all those adjustments I've made thus far since the first reading. If you have any questions on those, I'd be glad to answer those as well.
Council, do you have any questions for Mrs. Strecker? I want to give everybody a moment to look at it.
Sure. Mrs. Strecker, I'm looking at this back page of what you presented us this evening for the increased revenue for Wheatland Disposal. Revenue will be increased this year, it looks to me like $99,600. Yes, I did not put that increase in from our rate increase. I think that was in December or sometime around there. I can't remember for sure. So yes, I did update that revenue and also updated the tonnage as well to current. So we reviewed what we had last year and then updated both the rate, and we had, it had been 2 rate increases. They were 2 rate increases behind. So, and we discovered that, so.
And that was addressed in December of '22.
Yes.
If you're ready for a motion,
I would accept the motion.
I'll move to approve the budget on second reading.
I have a motion from Councilman Patterson to approve the 2024 fiscal year budget ordinance on second reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Deal. Any further discussion, gentlemen?
If I may, Mayor, I would just like to point out that this budget that we're approving now is not the final budget. We're up against statutory requirements to have it done by the first of the fiscal year, and it has to go through 3 readings, so it's still very much work in progress.
I thank you for that comment, and I appreciate that. Any other discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the 2024 fiscal year budget ordinance on second reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, that ordinance on second reading is passed.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is item number 7, ordinance on first reading relating to restrictions on bar and grill licenses. Mr. Eddington, would you please read that for us?
An ordinance creating and enacting section 5.12.065 of the Torrington Municipal Code 2023 revisions relating to restrictions on bar and grill licenses. Mayor and Council, if you remember, the state legislature passed a new law. Chief Johnson, Deputy Clerk, and I and myself met about 2 weeks ago, reviewed that law, and this is the ordinance that we came up with and proposing for first reading. covering those restrictions and still meeting the new law, if you will, meeting the terms and obligations of that new law.
And my understanding, this is a new category of liquor license called bar and grill.
It is with the entertainment component, if you will. That's what makes it new.
Okay, so an establishment that had this type of license would be able to serve alcohol, it could serve food, or would serve food, and then could also have some version of entertainment.
Correct, and we chose, we believe that 60%, if you see in paragraph A, section A, of the revenue shall still be the combination of food services and entertainment. And you had a choice, you had choices, and we went with what we believe to be the most conservative choice of 60%.
And how many bar and grill licenses are available?
2. But as of July 1st, we'll get 2 more to make it a total of 4. None are issued.
Now, what's the fee for the bar and grill license?
It's also the 1,500 actually. Yeah.
And I presume the requirements for the establishment itself are the same
In comparison to what?
to the other licenses?
So no. Bar and grill licenses, you have to meet the 60-40 split. So your alcohol sales can only be 40%. The rest of it, as we're defining, has to be food and or entertainment, a mixture. That's what makes it different. Retail, there's no split. You could just, it's all alcohol sales really, or if you have food. So yeah, it's just a little more restrictive in that sense, and they have to prove those numbers at renewal.
So how does this ordinance different from restaurant license then?
Restaurants, food only.
Restaurants can't have a lounge. A bar and grill license will allow you to have a lounge bar where someone can just go in and sit at a bar. As for a drink versus a restaurant, your main source is your meals. You have to be seated. You can't have a bar where people sit in your establishment. So that's what differs between the restaurant and the bar and grill.
I think this statute, when it was passed, there was encouragement from some places like Cheyenne and Laramie and things, and different franchise businesses they were wanting to open. And so this would allow the flexibility of, I'm just going to throw out a name like an Applebee's or something like that, where there is a bar, but it's not their primary
Yeah.
business.
And it was actually proposed on its own to be an entertainment license, but that didn't pass, and they grouped it, they combined it with the bar and grill to not completely shut it out, I guess.
There are a lot of, with technology, there are golf simulators where they do now similar to Topgolf, but it's a simulator where they serve food and beer, and you pay to pull up a course anywhere in the world, and you take your golf clubs with you and swing into a simulator, and you play 18 holes of golf indoors in the winter. They run about $30,000 to $50,000 for those machines. That's one of the big things. Axe throwing is a new one. There's all kinds of indoor games and events now, and they're trying to be able to serve food and alcohol with that. Probably not a good idea, axe throwing, but
What could go wrong?
We're just thinking,
They've got the axe throwing ones in Cheyenne.
yes, absolutely there is.
Moorcroft has apparently chicken roping, so this would not allow chicken roping, would it? Because there's a chicken ordinance.
We defined entertainment in the negative, not in the affirmative.
Since these bar and grill licenses serve food, are minors allowed?
They are.
Will be addressed in the next section.
The next ordinance.
Not at, but not at
And I have a question on the bar and grill. So if one has a bar and grill license, they sell alcohol, they sell food, and they have entertainment. The alcohol's on this side, and it has to be food and entertainment, or can it be just entertainment?
The combination of the two has to be 60% of their revenue under paragraph A.
So you couldn't have a situation where you're alcohol on this side and just entertainment on your 60% side. You have to have food with the entertainment.
I think it does require both.
Yeah.
Okay, that's, I read food services and, I just
Yes.
wanted to, okay,
Yes.
entertainment.
Now, is there a regulatory entity that this 60% has to be reported to?
So at renewal, they will show those numbers to me and prove that they're meeting that 60-40 split.
In writing.
Yeah,
Does it have to be, is that an overall thing, or month to month, or
just a yearly renewal.
is it an overall?
Mhm.
Mr. Mayor, is there some sort of statement of, or affidavit that the licensee would affirm that their revenue actually came from those sources?
Yeah, so they have to notarize their renewal application, swear that everything is correct, and, you know, everything is, if the liquor division chooses to audit, they still have to go beyond that, so, yep,
So those renewal applications are under oath.
yes.
Yeah, they're under penalty of perjury.
Mhm.
Similar to our microbreweries have to prove so many gallons every year. And then the legislature modified that a little bit because of COVID and the lack of business, but they still have to meet theoretically those minimum gallons each year to renew their microbrewery license.
So it's not a big bookkeeping burden on the clerk, it's because they just do it along with their application for renewal.
It is the, let's throw out a hypothetical. Let's say they didn't meet the 60%. Is the license revoked, or is there a penalty or a sort of phase in which they're under more strict scrutiny, if you will?
I think that's state statute, so we could revoke it, couldn't
We could revoke it, but since it's on renewal, it likely would not be approved for renewal from the state before we ever got to voting for it.
Okay.
And you
That's how
probably
I-
wouldn't revoke unless you had some very clear evidence that
Yeah,
there was no entertainment or food going on.
it's property right, and so it's a major lawsuit. I anticipate the state being the primary entity making that decision that they did not meet the 60%, because they review all applications.
And I want to reiterate what Ms. Anaya pointed out. Right now, we have 2 bar and grill licenses that will go up to 4 on July 1. And then if we wait till 2028, we'll be up to 6.
We'll get to know.
So there's a lot of room for that.
There is, they're trying to encourage business development in that area.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Eddington, what was the other options in terms of the revenue percentage?
It was, do you remember, do you have that?
So it's always been 60-40, but we had the option to say 30% food, 30% entertainment, 40% food, 20% entertainment. We felt like that would be a bookkeeping nightmare at renewal for me to have to calculate that split. So we just felt so long as you stay at the 60, the combination of food or entertainment, whatever that percentage would be there.
Okay.
And that seems to simplify it for the license holder,
For
too.
them as well, to not have to keep track of it that way, yes.
I got one question for Mr. Estes. Due to zoning laws that restricts where these bar and grill can be placed, right?
Yes.
And Mr. Mayor, in partial answer to your question, Mr. Victorin, I know we aren't talking about the next ordinance, but the penalty phase of that ordinance does answer some of the questions related to your question and what the city can do.
All right, council, any further questions for Mr. Eddington or Chief Johnson?
And this is first reading, so you can digest it further, and we can always tweak it if deemed necessary.
I would entertain a motion to approve ordinance on first reading relating to the restrictions on bar and grill licenses.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve the first reading of the bar and grill license ordinance.
I have a motion from Councilman Deal to approve on first reading the ordinance on relating to the restrictions on bar and grill licenses. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Victron. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving ordinance on first reading relating to restrictions on bar and grill licenses as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, that ordinance is approved on first reading. Next item on the agenda, which will answer some questions for us, I think, is item number 8, ordinance on first reading relating to minors and licensed liquor establishments. I'll go to Mr. Eddington.
An ordinance amending and reenacting section 5.12.025, Torrington Municipal Code 2023 revisions relating to minors in licensed liquor establishments.
Thank you, Mr. Eddington. Chief Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. 5.12.025 is the ordinance that we utilize to regulate the entrance of people under the age of 21 into licensed liquor establishments. And we made the updates to the ordinance so that it would match with the bar and grill license ordinance that you folks just read. This is something that took a fair bit of time to put together, and I'll try to kind of provide a quick synopsis. Several years ago, at the direction of Mayor and Council, we began to look into making some adaptations with this ordinance. The state allowed full access for people under the age of 21 into retail liquor, essentially all liquor license establishments. Of course, municipal ordinances could be more restrictive. In our case, it was essentially an absolute restriction, especially in a small town where a retail liquor license establishment might also be a family dining event, might also host family entertainment events, might have perfectly appropriate scenarios for people under the age of 21 to be present in that establishment. We felt like finding a compromise that would allow for a lot of freedom for our liquor licensed establishments to serve our community and do good business, but also keep people under the age of 21 safe and provide accountability should there be a problem was in order. So we drafted the proposal that, well, the ordinance has already been passed, but obviously this update would continue that proposal. Essentially, it provides for a written plan where any retail club, microbrewery permit, or in now bar and grill license would be able to present to the city a written plan proposal where we would meet and agree on here's where people under 21 can be, here's where they can't be, here's the checks and controls that we'll have in place. And if there's a failure in that regard, there's accountability already built into the ordinance. So the highlighted sections that you see before you are really just the inclusion of the bar and grill license into the existing ordinance, and we've maintained that same written plan format throughout. If you'll notice under section 2B, 3 little I, 1 and 2, that's really the meat of it. The specifics that we clarified under 1 and 2 were that it's not expressly stated elsewhere, it's implied, so we felt like we needed to expressly state it for the purpose of the bar and grill license because they are contingent upon that 60% requirement for their license to be successful. So we wanted to make it extra clear that if they were to file a written plan under the primary purpose, whether that be dining or entertainment, then the secondary purpose would also be inclusive in that, and they wouldn't need to do separation or additional written plans for the primary purpose and fulfilling the primary purpose of their business. And then that's really about it. I mean, that's the meat and potatoes of it. I'm happy to answer any questions, or I can offer more history of it, or if you like, but that's pretty much the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah, Chief Johnson, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
This ordinance has been in effect for a couple of years, right?
I think about a year and a half.
And so I was going to ask you, are the license holders happy or not unhappy with the written?
We've gotten really positive
Plan.
feedback about it. I mean, when we passed the ordinance, we actually used a pretty collaborative process. We invited all the license holders to come in and meet with us and review it and talk about it and offer suggestions and feedback. Since I have met with each of the license holders that's requested a written plan, we've come up with a plan that was mutually agreeable. We haven't had any contentious conversations about it. To my knowledge, it's been successful.
And that, a license holder doesn't get like a yearly written plan. He does it event by event.
Well, yes and no. The way that we designed it in the ordinance is that if you have a written plan that's going to continue into perpetuity, forgive me, but I'll use an example here in town, the Open Barrel Brewery. In addition to having a brewery setting, they also offer food. So in that context, if they write a written plan and we agree on a written plan for the service of a restaurant essentially in there, or food service inside of that establishment, unless they change that with some substantive modification, they don't need to get another written plan. They can just continue to follow those procedures. If you were, the Elks Club doing special events, they have a written plan for special events. If they were to do something radically different than what their current special event plan is, we would ask them to meet with us and come up with a plan to address whatever big change that they made from their written plan. So we've tried to make that as streamlined and unobtrusive as possible, while still giving us all of the objectives that we talked about at the beginning.
Mr. Mayor. Chief, so in essence, what you're saying is they could have a generalized plan of, this is the plan we're going to have for birthday parties.
Sure.
And I got to file it one time, and there's the fee, and this is how we're going to handle birthday parties at our establishment.
Yep. And you're
And
done.
insofar as that they don't stray from that plan, that's the general operating procedure for that plan.
Yep. Especially with, if you look at the age of a lot of our buildings and bathroom locations and all those sorts of things, it can actually be somewhat complex to figure out how we manage people under the age of 21 inside of an establishment. So it tends to work a lot better, rather than saying, hey, here's your boilerplate, this is what every establishment has to do. Some of them are going to have a really hard time meeting that.
Sure.
And so by doing an individual written plan where we meet with every single one of them and come up with that plan so that it works for everybody, they can use those principles really into perpetuity, and unless they do something radically different, they're good to go.
I know a couple years ago when we were doing this license, it was brought up about the, Mavericks, stays open 24 hours a day and they have liquor. Is that covered in this?
That actually is at the very beginning, because they are a retail license. And so, let's see here, where do we have it? It'll be paragraph 2A, little I. Retail licenses that engage in the sale of packaged liquor only and also sell other goods that are commonly used by persons under the age of 21 in the same licensed building, may allow people under 21 in the licensed building. They have to limit the access. Separate area designated for liquor sales must be in a location where staff can monitor it. And then we review the right to review and approve the separation, access, and monitoring. They don't have to do a written plan for that. But when they close liquor service at whatever time they close liquor service at 2 a.m. or sooner if they choose, they can still maintain, they can no longer serve liquor, but they still can maintain their.
That's why at the local Maverick, it's separated off in that corner.
Yeah. And there's been some push to remove some of that. I know some communities have done that differently. We kind of felt like that was worth sticking our guns on. If you're mixing your beer in with your iced tea, it gets a little tougher to figure some of that out. So we've just tried to keep that pretty separate and pretty pretty managed.
I noticed the one in Cheyenne is set up the same way the one in Torrington,
Good.
Maverick.
Good.
It's just kind of confusing because under number 4, it says persons under the age of 21 be allowed no unsupervised access. Well, their supervised access at Maverick,
I'm sorry, under which number?
4.
Bottom of page 1.
And then over on the other page, it mentions at 9 o'clock, all persons under the age of 21 must exit the licensed sale serves area of the establishment by 9 p.m. So it's just a little confusing to me is all.
So, Councilman, the key differences on that are in the subparagraph I and double I. So, subparagraph I applies to retail licenses that are package sale only. And then subparagraph double I, the mayor can remember, it's not subparagraph, it's
Romanet.
Romanet. I can
Two.
never get the Romanet right. Under Romanet double little I, that actually is for the family dining event. And then the Romanet triple I is for the licensed establishment that's going to host an entertainment event. So it's 3 different types of situations that we're addressing there. And so the 1, 2, and 3 under Romanet little I are the ones that apply to package sale only for something like a Maverick.
Well, I'll give you this, it is detailed, but so far it's working.
Seems to be.
And if you spend time with it, it's fairly easily understandable if you spend time with it. And apparently they are spending time with it because we aren't having issues.
We've been happy with it. And I know a lot of businesses are thriving with it, and they seem to be doing it the right way.
All right, gentlemen, any further questions for Mr. Eddington or for Chief Johnson? I would entertain a motion to approve ordinance on first reading, item number 8, relating to minors and licensed liquor establishments.
Mr. Mayor.
I have a motion from Councilman Patterson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Victor. Any further discussion, gentlemen? I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving on first reading the ordinance relating to minors and licensed liquor establishments signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, that ordinance is approved on first reading. Next item on the agenda is the Vector truck rental discussion, and Tom Troxel, water and wastewater supervisor, is here and has some information for us. Yeah, I think I buried it over here.
Mayor and Council, I'm here to ask you folks for permission to go out for a rental agreement for a Vector truck. So we at least have one on hand in case we have an emergency, and also to get that truck out and working like it should be this summer while we have the warm weather. What's scary about that is the rental price. Chris and I, after getting these, were shocked. So I have some friends that are in the business of selling some yellow iron, so I called them to ask them what a road grader would rent for a month. And that was the same price as a Vector, $14,000 a month. So it's somewhere around $400 and maybe $70 a day if you divide it out. It's very expensive. But then again, a backup could be very expensive too. We have flooded basements before. We're trying to get all those sewers fixed over the years, all the bad ones, and we've done a pretty good job, but there's always a few that could surprise you. And we have a lot of trunk lines that, the bigger ones, that 10, 12 inch, 18 inch, if they were to get plugged with roots or rags or whatever it may be and back up, we could have a huge mess. We'd be looking at possibly only renting for 3 months. We're hoping within those 3 months we hear something back from our insurance, a determination of what they're going to do. And then we'll probably come back to you for, I don't know, an emergency for purchase of a new vac truck. We'll have to discuss how we're going to do that, but that's kind of what I was just thinking offhand. The rental agreement, if you so choose to let us do that, we'll try and do the best agreement for the city.
How many options do you think there might be for rental?
Well, right now I got 3, possibly 4. And there's a lot of things to consider. One of them, for example, Mayor and Council, is the same company that sold us our truck, Joe Johnson, and they have a facility in Denver. That's where the truck would come from. And then any support, any mechanical work would come from Denver. There's another one in Salt Lake. The truck broke down. You're talking Salt Lake. So this isn't easy by any means, trying to figure out which way to go, which vendor, or even if you guys even let us do this, but
Let me ask this. Obviously, past council considers the city owning a Vector truck as essential and was willing to pay the huge amount that a Vector truck costs because it was considered an essential item of equipment. And right now, we're without.
yes, sir.
If there's an emergency, my understanding is we have an agreement with the city of Scotts Bluff to come up here in an emergency.
Hopefully by tomorrow, we will have that
Well,
finally in
it's
place.
in the works. and it looks-
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and that's still 2 hours, you know?
But
By the
that's only
time-
covering us in an emergency.
Yes, yes.
And so the purpose for your asking for this permission to go potentially rent one is because it is such an essential item of equipment. And we don't want to be without and only have access to a possible emergency use situation with Scotts Bluff equipment, right? It's essential to have one on hand, I guess is what I'm saying.
That's correct, sir. That's correct.
Well, you use them basically anytime a water line breaks too, right?
We do. We do use it for
And that
various
didn't happen
things.
in Torrington very
We
often.
use it to help Dana set poles. That truck's used a lot, a lot. We probably won't be doing any contract work if you was to grant us a rental truck. And I don't think it's fair to charge rental for when the truck's sitting, like Saturdays and Sundays, but I'll try and work with them on that, but anyway, another thing I wanted to bring to your attention, just before the council meeting, I laid that sheet up there. That is from our local government liability pool. And whenever we have a backup, or if somebody's basement gets flooded, we get to fill this handy dandy little survey out. And yours is in color, but just a couple lines down, it says important. Send a copy of the sewer preventive maintenance schedule for your municipality, along with this questionnaire. And then you go down and you see the questions. Do you have a written maintenance log? Do you have a sewer camera truck? Do you have a sewer jet truck? How often are the lines cleaned? When was the last preventive maintenance action taken? It's no fun to fill out when we have a sewer backup. But we have a program now. It takes about 2.5 to 3 years to get through the entire city. We can't run that truck in the winter, unfortunately. We freeze it. But we do as much as we can in 6 months of the year. And then our documented program is now on our GIS format with the date, time, discrepancies, all noted on that GIS map of the city.
So,
Go ahead,
Ask a
Councilman
question.
Pepper.
so what you're saying here is if we can't show a pattern of preventive maintenance on the sewers, if we get a backup, it could affect our liability.
Yes.
Coverage.
Coverage, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, and to piggyback off of what Councilman Patterson said, I just, looking at this form a little more, on the back page, it says the courts and nationally recognized insurance companies now require written maintenance logs, including preventative maintenance schedules, to be kept. Multiple issues with the same line may constitute negligence. But what gets to me is the preventative maintenance and the job of preventative maintenance cannot be done without this piece of equipment. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir. I know it's a tremendous amount of money, but I understand from Ms. Stricker that we have some funds to cover us in our emergency reserve.
I do have a few questions, Tom. Is there, in your research for a rental, do any of them have the option to purchase?
Yes. Yes, that's one of the many factors we got to consider. Unfortunately, Vector does not have that option. Don't know why. He says, I've been here, the salesman says, I've been here 20-some years and I've never heard of that. And then some of the other vendors are saying, oh yeah, there's an option to buy, to apply like 50% of the lease towards the purchase. So that's where it's going to be difficult.
The next question is, and I don't know any of the discussions you've had with the LGLP, but is it possible that some of the rental fee might be covered by the insurance?
Our policy is one of the worst you could probably get. I mean, a homeowner's policy will cover a rental. Our LGLP does not cover a rental.
Just liability.
Excuse, I think maybe this was your question. We have a policy that covers the Vector truck that was wrecked. Okay,
Yeah,
is
and
that
that's
the
not
policy
actually.
you're talking about?
Yes, maybe I misspoke. I didn't mean to reference the liability pool policy in that regard.
But the regular insurance carrier was my understanding that they didn't cover.
We did ask, I think it was a maximum of up to $900, which wouldn't even cover
Pay
a
for,
month.
pay for the fuel,
2 days.
Yeah, so it's very minimal coverage on that.
but we have no idea how long this truck's gonna be down, do we?
We don't. Sylvia's been helping me push this issue. Our insurance said get estimates. I got Floyd's up here. It's because it's a Freightliner truck. First, I got the body man up here. He says I can repair the hood. And he says, let me get the rest of my team up here. So he brought everybody up from the shop. Okay. They looked at the truck. They figured out we can't even, they called Denver where they send the frames to be straightened. And Denver basically said, your truck needs a new frame.
Figured it would.
But it doesn't make sense to put a new frame under the existing chassis because it's all tweaked. It's all, the drive lines, everything is tweaked. Engine mounts, transmission mounts are broke. So the other person I got is Joe Johnson out of Denver, the mechanic. He's trying to put together an estimate to give to us so we can give to the insurance. But again, the insurance adjuster asked Sylvia to send pictures, and Sylvia explained to him that pictures aren't going to do this justice. You need to come look at it. You can't see a lot of it. You have to crawl under the truck.
And you're still awaiting the adjuster's arrival to do that. And you've contacted him more than once.
They touched base late this afternoon, so we at least have a contact now, and they're getting going, so.
Tom, is it possible to remove the equipment from the truck to be placed on a new truck? Granted, now I did see the truck itself, and I know there is some damage to the equipment itself. But does that damage render it inoperable?
I think some of it can be salvaged. You know, pretty much the back half can be probably salvaged. But it's the insurance determination is that, I don't know how they, kind of Brian explained to us at staff meeting this morning, says, is it going to be over 70%, then they're going to total it. If it's under 70%, then it can be fixed. Then you got to take in transportation costs to wherever to get it fixed. Just all these factors to figure, again, is it going to be worth it? And which we'll pursue all that. We'll definitely make sure, we're making the right decision for the city. But there's a lot of things to consider.
Even if it can be fixed, it will take significant time.
Oh, months,
Yeah,
months.
so even if it is repairable, you still don't have use of,
No, after 3 months, we'll be back to just having Scottsbluff on standby. Scottsbluff was the closest. Just to let you know, I reached out to Wyoming Warren, which we are a member of. It's a mutual aid agreement within the entire state. I've only had one utility contact me so far, and it was Cheyenne, collection superintendent, and they have a truck. He said if it can make it to Torrington, we'll let you use it. But it just has the line, the vacuum part of the truck doesn't work. It's got hydraulic problems, and when you fire it up, the truck will shut down, and hydraulic fluid goes everywhere. And he says, but you can use a hose reel.
If it can make it from
If it can make it.
Cheyenne to Torrington.
And so that was put out through Rural Water, a statewide email, and they're the only ones that responded so far.
Well, I think it's been my experience, it all boils down to the adjuster. How long it takes him to get here,
That's very true,
how long you can
Councilman.
convince him whether it's totaled or not. Because the 70% don't mean nothing anymore. Them insurance companies, the last ones I worked with were basically through a darting board, I think. But,
Yeah, you don't know what to expect. I bought my first camper for $12,000, it got hailed, and he gave me $26,000 for it. Hey, bye, I'm going to the bank. You just don't. You don't know what to expect from an
Yeah.
adjuster.
and it is an essential piece of equipment. And it can happen any time of the year, water line breaks. And I don't know how you could pump out one of those holes without it.
Well, we have some pumps. And my collection guys, they got to thinking about it. Everybody did, actually, and we have a pump that I bought just for this purpose. It's a 6-inch pump, and it's set up to bypass pump from manhole to manhole. But that's only going to buy us a little bit of time.
and avoid problems down the road. And as we say, we don't know when the adjuster's going to show up. Hopefully it's soon. Sounds like it'll be soon. But even then, we don't know whether it'll be paid out as totaled or they'll demand that it be fixed, and who knows how long that would take. So, Tom, my understanding is you're looking into 3 or 4 options, but it looks like it's a basic rental rate of $14,000 a month. And you're going to go out and continue to look and see what the best deal is and take into consideration the location for the mechanic to come up and work on if it's necessary. It might be better to have the mechanic in Cheyenne or in Denver rather than Salt Lake.
Yeah, and just, Mayor, real quick, that may not work out for us in Denver because they're holding the truck until tomorrow. And I don't know if that's the best decision for the city or not, but something like that, you know, you gotta make a decision now. This truck just came in, we gotta get it back out. They're a little pushy, so.
So
But-
there's a demand for these rentals.
Yes, big time. But yes, sorry to interrupt, and that's exactly what we're looking for, is just to buy some time and get some cleaning done. These guys, that'll be their primary focus probably.
Is there a minimum time you have to rent it for?
Monthly.
Just by month-to-month basis?
All right, I don't know exactly how to word this, so I'll give it.
I have a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, thank you, Councilman Victor, appreciate that.
I would move to allow staff to enter into a rental agreement for a vac truck for the term of 3 months with the possibility of an extension by way of request in month 3.
All right, I have I think, a well-stated motion. I won't repeat it, but do I have a second?
I would second.
I have a second I have the motion from Councilman Victorin and a second from Councilman Kelly. Do I have any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, I would call for a vote on Councilman Victorin's motion.
One second,
Oh,
Mr. Mayor.
sorry.
Do we want to put a monetary stipulation in it?
Well, I'm open to that. I just only heard the one, so I didn't know what his other options were.
They're all in that range. They're all in that range of 14,000. Some were more, but I don't really want to pay more.
Allow the city to negotiate the best
Possible fee.
possible fee or price.
Yes, I would accept that friendly amendment.
All right, we have that friendly amendment.
Amendment first.
Do I have a second? Did I get a second? I don't remember.
Got a second, but we've got to,
I would second the amendment.
Okay,
But the amendment needs to be voted on first.
all right.
Parliamentary procedures.
We have-
Mr. Mayor.
We are addressing the amendment that was a friendly amendment suggested by Councilman Kelly, and Councilman Victorin approved that. So I'm going to call for a vote on the amendment. Councilman Deal made the motion on the amendment,
I
right?
Councilman Patterson.
Yeah.
I made them, yeah. and
Motion.
I didn't put it in proper form, but I will make that motion
On the amendment.
on the amendment.
And then Councilman Deal seconded that. Is there any discussion, gentlemen, on the motion on the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor of the amendment as stated signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. All right, that amendment is passed and approved. Now we go to the vote on the
The
main
the amended motion.
the amended motion. Okay, so do I have, I think I need a motion.
No, discussion.
All right, we've got a motion and a second, so now we're having discussion on the motion as amended. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, call for vote on the motion as amended. All those in favor of the motion as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, the motion as amended is approved. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you. We'll work with staff. Mayor, we'll keep you informed so you can let everybody else know how things are coming out.
Thank you,
Good luck.
Mr. Troxel. All right. The next item on the agenda is item number 10, the new snow removal equipment, displacement plow with single axle chassis and dump body solicitation process results update. And I have Mrs. Strecker first on this.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We went out to quotes and solicited 2 quotes. There was one no bid. Floyd's Truck Center quoted $227,691 for delivery in May of '24. Peterbilt of Wyoming out of Cheyenne, total bid was $258,000, same delivery time. MHC Kenworth out of Cheyenne had a no bid. We entered into a purchase contract with Floyd's Truck Center for $227,691. Does anybody have any questions?
And what do we have budgeted?
We had 210 budgeted. You allowed us to go to 230 in your motion.
And the delivery on this would be,
May 24.
We won't need it then, it'll be
I know,
snow.
we're just gonna miss, it's the plow part that I guess is taking most of the time. They think the truck will be here, but we're waiting on the plow piece.
We're going to have a mild winter.
Now, did that have a sander with it too?
Yes.
oh, it did.
All for the 227,000?
Yes.
I also have Mr. Ed Hawley back there, if council has any questions for Ed, or if Ed thinks there's anything additional we need to know. I see it. He says we're good to go with information. Thank you, Mr. Hawley.
You did get at least 3 bids?
We solicited 3 companies, and the third company did not give us a bid or a quote.
And the other one
I should
was
use the
way
word
higher
quote.
than 227,000.
Yeah.
What was it?
258.
Okay, well, council gave permission to go out and solicit the bids,
Right.
so to speak. All right, are you looking for council to approve this purchase?
I don't know.
Not necessary, you approved it prior.
This is just informational,
Right.
coming back with the information. Okay,
That was part of my motion, that they inform us.
okay. So we've been duly informed. I think it's good news, given all the circumstances. Does council any more questions for Mrs. Strecker? All
This is a
right.
new process, so we're still.
I appreciate the work you're doing on this.
This is a new process, as we'll also discuss in
Yeah.
another item on the agenda. All right. Well, seeing that we don't need to take a vote, we've already taken the vote and allowed staff to go out and do this. This was purely informational, and without objection, I think we're finished with item number 10. All right. We will move on to item number 11 for council consideration. Staff is requesting approval to solicit quotes for a new one-ton pickup. No bids were received at the bid opening that was advertised for May 17th, 23 at 2 p.m. I will first go to Mrs. Strecker.
So this is going to be kind of the same process as with the snowplow. We did already go out and ask about some current vehicles out on the lot, and we did report those at the work session at the very end. With that in mind, the staff would like to recommend pretty much the same process as before, allowing us to solicit quotes and then enter into purchase contract. And looking at those quotes, I was talking to Tom Troxel. We think that if we have an allowance of $69,000, we could get that vehicle that is spec'd out with a 1-ton and the utility box.
Now, those vehicles don't sit on the lot very long.
They don't. Time is of the essence on this one, especially. They sell very quickly. Kelly just said she recently checked, and most of them are still there. So I think the specific one we were most interested in was the one in, is it Sheridan or Lander?
Fremont Motors.
It was Fremont.
Fremont Motors, yes.
So,
Well, I don't see this as a one-ton, as a must-have project. And since I have the thing with the Vector truck, I would more suggest we take that $69,000 and apply it towards the rent of a Vector truck. It would make a whole lot more sense. And I would make that a motion.
Just a point of clarification, Councilman Kelly. Are you, your motion is to apply $69,000 to the Vector rental?
Well,
Because we have 60 funded.
that's at $69,000.
I'm looking at that June 6th letter to me that's included in the packet.
60,000,
Yeah, it's 60,000 and the recommend.
amended to 60,000 then, because instead of buying this 1-ton, apply the fundage to the rental of the Vector truck.
Okay. And if I stated it incorrectly, please correct me. I have a motion from Councilman Kelly to take the $60,000 that's in the budget to purchase a 1-ton pickup and apply the $60,000 to the rental for the Vector truck that we propose to rent in the near future. Do I have a second?
I'll second it for purposes of discussion.
All right. We have a second from, or we have a motion from Councilman Kelly as stated. We have a second from Councilman Deal. Do we have discussion?
I was wondering if Mr. Troxel, if you would talk about explain the necessity for the new vehicle, the utility vehicle. Sorry to put you on the spot, Tom.
No, that's fine. The vehicle it's replacing, would be replacing, is the wastewater pickup. I don't have the year and everything with me right now, but it has been in the shop a considerable amount of time for things. It is over 12 years old, I believe. It goes to Scottsbluff once a week to deliver wastewater samples. If we can't get samples via FedEx on time to Casper, it goes to Casper to deliver wastewater samples. It's been in the capital plan. I know we were working on a written capital plan for the city because we never have had one as far as vehicles, how long to keep them before they nickel and dime the city, how long to keep them before you can get a return on them or a trade-in. We haven't got that done yet. But it does more than just run around town. Need a good, safe, reliable vehicle for my staff. We were to the point where with these vehicles, they were getting so old and they weren't getting replaced in time. I had a staff member take one of the school cars, for example, to Casper. He got stranded in the middle of the interstate, timing belt. Something went out of that car. That wasn't necessary. That van had over 100,000 miles. It should have been down the road. So he had to have his family come from Torrington to go to Interstate 25 to pick him up and bring him home. I think reliable vehicles for everybody in the city is needed. I know it's a lot of money. It's less than 5% of my total budget. They are budgeted. They are rotated. I mean, they're not 2 or 3 trucks do it the same year. They're split over different time frames, over 12 years. We could extend that, if you guys, when you see the policy, want to tweak it, we could do that. We like to take these trucks and hand them down to the non-enterprise departments. They're still good vehicles for them. And I guess if they're in the shop at 3 or 4 days out of the week, it is a total loss for them because they have other means of transportation depending on what type of weather is out. But I think through COVID, everybody realized that water and sewer is an essential service, just like some of the other services, and we need reliable vehicles. And another thing, if you've ever been a supervisor or been in a supervisor position, it keeps staff happy if their vehicles aren't in the shop. It's a morale boost. I mean, we got so many things to do with so little people that if 1 or 2 vehicles are in the shop, it's pretty much a downer for the crew,
I want to ask you this, and I'm going to ask the obvious, but this $60,000 was budgeted last year for the 2022-23 fiscal year, and it went through the budget process that we've all been going through this year and was passed by mayor and council within the budget.
Yes, sir.
Last year.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And we did bid it out earlier, received bids that were over $75,000, so we rejected the bids and wanted to go out for rebid in April, and we did. And just for further clarification, I do have the truck it's replacing is a 2008 with 107,000 miles on it. I do believe we get reimbursed from the WMCI and the sewer fund for this as well.
That's correct.
Is there a trade-in value on that truck?
We haven't worked that in any of the deals, but
You said it would be passed to a non-enterprise department.
it can, or we could, we'll have to look at statutes, but yeah, I mean, it could be sold for the going rate, which could be, I don't know how we do it statute-wise, but take bids with a minimum, maybe?
They could go through auction, or we could take bids. We did not advertise it as a trade-in, but where we're going out for bid or quotes, we may be able, if you want to trade in, we could negotiate that.
So we have a motion on the floor, so I want to address that. My concern is if we don't do it now, it won't be in this budget we're working on right now. We can't really add it in there. I mean, that ship has kind of sailed. So we'd be looking at 2 years. So
You know-
I'm opposed to the motion, and I'll vote when the time comes, but yeah, I just don't think it's a good idea to kick the can down the road 2 more years and deal with, and keep this vehicle 2 more years on the highway, and
You know, these budgets are not easy to
no,
do.
they're not.
We were very conservative, and then we got hit blindsided.
But this pickup, we indicated a year ago was needed. Determined a year ago it was needed. It has nothing to do with the back truck. Those are 2 separate issues. And it seems like we're penalizing, inadvertently maybe, but we're penalizing your department because of an issue that's unrelated to this truck replacement.
And another thing we got to commend Treasurer Lynette, but I've been pushing for years to have a reserve. She just got this started a few years ago. Technically, industry says there should be 4 reserve accounts. It's hard to do just one in our community. So we're making strides there. The emergency reserves are for situations like this. But
All right, we're in the discussion phase of the motion. Is there any further discussion or questions for either Mrs. Strecker or Mr. Troxel?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to call the question.
All right, question has been called on the motion to take the $60,000 and apply it to the vac truck rental. All those in favor of that signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay.
Nay.
Nay. All right, that motion does not pass. So we're back to approving staff to go out and solicit quotes for a 1-ton pickup for a price not to exceed $69,000.
Correct.
Do we have a motion? I don't remember.
I would move that we approve option 1 and request that staff report back the results similar to what we just did with the previous one.
Okay, and so I have a motion from Councilman Patterson for council to approve option number 1, which is listed there as attachment to the agenda. And I'll just quote it quickly. Knowing that time is of the essence, allow staff to solicit 3 quotes and enter into a purchase contract as long as the amount does not exceed the budget amount or within a certain percentage of the budget amount, and report the results of the purchase transaction at the next scheduled council meeting.
And to clarify that, I would use the recommendation at the bottom as far as the amount goes, for a total of 69.
For a total of 69,000. So that is the motion as clearly stated as I can do it. I think it's clearly stated. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Deal. Any further discussion on that motion, gentlemen? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote on that. That council approves staff soliciting 3 quotes and enter into a purchase agreement contract as long as the amount does not exceed the sum of $69,000 as set forth in the recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed signify by saying nay.
Nay.
All right, the ayes have it. So staff is approved to go do that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I don't think I have a second motion here, but I would like to see staff explore the resale value of this vehicle to be replaced.
Most definitely.
I think in this economy, in this environment, that truck could be proven to be of considerable value to the city monetarily, now that it could be replaced or will be replaced, and potentially that sale money could offset some of this expense now
For the back truck rental.
for the current purchase of the new vehicle.
So it may very well be worth more as a trade-in than it is to the city as a
Pass on.
pass-on.
All right,
I don't have a motion to, I think it would be prudent in this economy to see what that truck could sell for.
and I'm getting nods of the head from staff that they're happy to do that.
Yes, sir.
I guess, I don't know if does council wish for a motion to?
I'm concerned with locking that in because it may find out we're gonna give you $1,750 for it. And then
Very
we'd be better off keeping it, so I think
I
allowing the
guess
staff to
I'd like the
flex.
staff to report to us at some point what they find.
All right. Thank you,
Again.
Chief Troxel.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. I believe that we are finished with item number 11. And we will move on to item number 12. Amendment number 1 to the agreement for professional services with Ingberg Miller Engineers. Staff recommends approval of amendment number 1 to the current agreement dated July 1, 23, in the amount of $38,370. Director of Public Works Harkins.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you stated, we recommend that Council approve amendment number 1 to the agreement for professional services with Ingberg Miller Engineers in the stated amount of $38,370 and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign. Basically, what this amendment is for the environmental monitoring and testing that we have to do out at the landfill. This is 2 reports that are done every year and submitted to DEQ as part of the requirements of operating the landfill. In addition, we have about $10,000 of that $38,000 set aside for potential surveying work that in all likelihood may not even be expended, so this actual expenditure would probably be around $28,000. Other than that, if you have any questions on this amendment, I'd be more than happy to answer.
And this $38,370, that's a one-time fee
Not to exceed for the year,
for that, for 1 year?
yes.
Mr. Mayor, Director Harkins, if you could enlighten me about the agreement for professional services. Basically, this amendment is to set forth the fee to be paid, but the original contract was just to contract with them to do this work. Is that correct?
Basically, the original contract, the agreement for professional services, was to retain Inberg Miller to do the work. As we stated when we did the original agreement, we would come before you for all the additional amendments to actually do the work with the set fees in place.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve if there's no further discussion, I would move to approve the amendment number 1 to agreement for professional services with Inberg Miller Engineers as set forth in the agenda item 12.
I have a motion from Councilman Victron to approve amendment number 1 to the agreement for professional services with Inberg Miller Engineers as set forth in the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Kelly. Do I have any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving amendment number 1 to the agreement for professional services with Inberg Miller as set forth in item 12 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, that amendment is approved. Next item on the agenda is amendment number 2 to the agreement for professional services with Inberg Miller Engineers. Staff recommends approval of amendment number 2 to the current agreement dated July 1, 23 in the amount of $25,000. Director of Public Works Harkins.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. This amendment number 2, as I stated during some of the work sessions, was to begin a feasibility study for the moving of the baler facility out to the landfill. As you are aware, or if you are not aware, the existing baler began operation in 1972. This year it'll be 51 years old. It's not when it will break down, but it's not if it will break down, but it's when will it break down. So basically, we're looking at the possibility of moving the baler to the landfill, which kind of makes sense. A lot of municipalities have their baler facilities located at the landfill. This would remove having to truck the bales out there, which would, obviously, this is something that requires a Class A license, and that's another issue in and of itself. So we would like to go forward with this study just so that council will be better informed and better aware of what the costs and, the possibilities and the regulations that would be required to do that move. The $25,000 fee, I was kind of ecstatic about that because I was imagining this was going to cost more in the $80,000 to $100,000. So I think you're getting a bargain.
All right,
I just have a question for the director. On the first page of this agreement, it says to prepare a feasibility study for building a new transfer station. Is that just industry terms for a baler facility?
Correct.
Okay. And then just a comment here. The baler began operation in 1972 with the city,
Correct.
but it's my understanding the baler was in operation even before that.
It
Is
was
that-
purchased used.
So,
And Ed, do you know when?
It was purchased in 1970, it was used, it went into operation in 72.
Okay.
so we've used it since 72, but
1971 when it'd been run.
it's been in existence since 1970.
okay.
On this sheet, it says, study and cost estimate to relocate the Baylor facility to the landfill. But then the other one says it's a new transfer station. Is it gonna be for a new one, or is it moving an existing one?
Basically, moving the existing one would essentially be a new transfer facility at the landfill. I mean, to move the existing Baylor machine would be ridiculous and not cost-effective. I mean, you're moving a piece of equipment that may not even survive the move itself.
That's why I didn't understand why you want to relocate that one out there. It's older than everybody in this
Well,
building.
no, relocate the Baylor facility, not the Baylor itself.
You're meaning relocate the operation.
Yes.
So you could have that location out there at the landfill that doesn't have a baler able to operate on it, but you have the,
Well, we would want a new Baylor as
That's-
part of the Baylor facility.
okay. That's the elephant in the room, right?
Okay.
Okay.
And then obviously, we would get cost estimates from the engineer for both the facility and the new Baylor.
Well, I give the Baylor mechanics great credit for keeping that thing running for 53
Yeah.
years.
Budget's about, what was it, 50,000 a year
To keep it up.
to keep that thing working?
Yeah, that's when I graduated from high school in 1970, and my bailing is failing.
All right, does council have any further questions for Mr. Harkins?
I would move to approve Amendment 2 to the agreement.
I have a motion from Councilman Patterson to approve the amendment number 2 to the agreement for professional services with Enberg Miller Engineers as set forth in item number 13. Do I have a second?
Second?
I have a second from Councilman Deal. Any further discussion, gentlemen? I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving amendment number 2 to the agreement for professional services with Enberg Miller as set forth in item number 13 in the agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, that amendment number 2 to the agreement for professional services with Enberg Miller is approved. Next item on the agenda is item number 14, amendment number 4 to the agreement for professional services with Tri-Hydro Corporation. Staff recommends approval of amendment number 4 to extend the original agreement to 12/31 of '25 through the construction period and to establish a new budget amount of $745,056 for the construction, administration, and inspection of the project. Mr. Harkins.
Yeah, thank you again, Mayor and Council. This obviously is hopefully the last step in the wastewater treatment, pre-treatment facility. Tri-Hydro has done the design, they've done the bidding. We are now at the state where we've awarded the contract, and now we need to do the construction administration and the inspection of the project. As stated, been working with Michelle Sell of Tri-Hydro, who is here tonight, and could potentially answer any of your questions if you so choose. But we're committed to doing the construction administration and inspection when they got on board with the design and bidding process. Typically, the administration and inspection costs for projects are in about the 10% range for large projects. Smaller projects, it could be 15 to 20%. This project, as you know, is $8.4 million, and their fee, that their not to exceed fee of $745,056 is, I think, 8.86%, which is reasonable in industry standards. That being said, we do have the funding available for not only the project, but to cover the costs of the inspection services. As you can see in the memo that I presented, we actually have $11,250,000 available for this project. That being said, I'm here to answer any questions, or if you would like, Michelle Sell could come forward and answer any questions.
First of all, I'd ask council if they have any questions for Mr. Harkins, and I'd certainly like to hear from Ms. Sell if no one has questions for Mr. Harkins. Does council have any questions on this item from Mr. Harkins? No. Ms. Sell, you're welcome to come to the podium. And thank you for coming this evening. I appreciate it. And would you just state your name for the record?
Yeah, hi, I'm Michelle Sell with Tri-Hydro Corporation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Happy to be here and answer any questions you might have about the proposed scope.
Would you take less money?
Pardon?
Would you take less money?
Take less money? Oh, we worked hard with Mr. Harkins and Mr. Troxel and such to try to really, based on past experience with these types of projects, identify the periods where we would need, or we propose full-time observation. And you got to do your construction administration regardless. That's there, but full-time observation versus part-time observation. This has been a big project for the city and continues to be. It's a complex project. There's lots of components with like your headwork structure, making sure that concrete installation and like your rebar installation is how it was designed and meant to be. You have a lot of electrical work and even very equipment heavy with the components of your headwork structure, your bypass lift station and such. So there's a lot of, just figuring out getting it all to work together and such. So we have not received a contractor schedule at this time, and so that's something that when we receive that, we'll go back, take a look at this and see. But even continuously throughout the project, our view on this is construction observation is as important as design, because it's where you're actually implementing things in the field and making sure it's done correctly, dealing with challenges, because maybe the City of Torrington has had a little luck, but there generally seems to be some sort of challenge that comes up with on a project. And so being prepared to deal with those challenges and such as they arise. Continuing to be a teaming partner with the city to make this a successful project.
So that means no.
No. Sorry, a long way of saying it, but I know those numbers look big. We tried in the assumptions to kind of break down what went into the development of, how we came up with hours and fees and such, and so, yeah.
I think sometimes the service that we're talking about here maybe is underappreciated. Having been involved in some very big projects like this, it is absolutely crucial to have good people on the job, watching, checking, inspecting.
Yeah, and our philosophies start out strong. Making sure things are going well, and maybe if they're going well, good contractor on board and things are happening, we can taper that back. But that would definitely be in coordination with the city and staff and such, comfort level on those types of things. So we just,
You bring the expertise we don't have.
Yeah. And I was thinking back about just, as driving over here and such, and Stephen Young, who's our senior design engineer on this project, he's done the big component with the treatment components and such, and the lift station and such. And both he and I were here for the proposal interviews. And so for this project in particular, maintaining some senior level across the board, and maintaining that through construction provides some consistency and efficiency to your project.
We appreciate you being here in
Yeah.
person. I recall the difficulty of trying to, trying to hear on the phone
Yeah,
what
your
was going
previous
on.
meeting, yes, yeah, those darn roads. Yeah,
And before I forget, I want to thank you for your participation when you were on that phone.
of course,
Your participation was very helpful to me and to, I think, the rest of the members of the council.
of course, happy to
Thank you
help.
for that.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Victor.
so I just wanted to clarify the time spent. Is it full-time or part-time on the project?
So what we've assumed is up to 9 months of full-time observation and then 14 months of part-time. Truly 13 months, and then 1 month will be startup and commissioning of the facility. And so we didn't identify particularly on a schedule where that 9 months of full-time needs to come in and where the part-time comes in. That'll definitely be something that's coordinated as we see the contractor schedule and best determine where that's providing the most value.
And you have a superintendent of this project to go directly to.
A contractor superintendent? Yes, the contractor has a superintendent, yes.
So there's a person that you can contact if there's issues.
Yes, yep.
He's sitting over there.
Well, I'm not talking about him, but I'm talking about with Rice, Lake, and West.
Yes, there's a project superintendent for Rice Lake and West.
So I see in here that the project is expected to not exceed more than 640 calendar days. Is that correct?
So that's by your contract to substantial completion. They have
Right.
640 days to substantial completion.
In your estimate, do you expect it to take that long?
It's hard to say. I mean, we haven't even had our pre-construction meeting. We haven't even started seeing their schedule. Just on other projects, it's hit and miss right now with material availability. There's some things that are starting to see become better with lead times in that, and then there's other things that are still seeing longer lead times. It's really hard for us to say what that, if it might be done before that time. I don't know.
Weather, always weather.
Weather, yeah. There were no mandatory shutdowns or anything with this project. I mean, I guess that's the contractor would potentially propose that, but there was none in the contract documents.
I've seen the plans for it. It's simple, but it is complex.
There's a lot of components.
And we've, I hope I'm not saying this wrong, but we've got one shot at this to get it right. So it's imperative that there is this service, the construction oversight, to make sure that the project is what we're getting. What we're paying is for, what we're getting.
Yes.
I would move to approve Amendment 4 to the Agreement for Professional Services with Tri-Hydro.
I have a motion from Councilman Patterson to approve the amendment number 4 to the agreement for professional services with Tri-Hydro Corporation as set forth in item number 14 on the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Deal.
No.
Victorin, I'm sorry. I have a second from Councilman Victorin. Do I have any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approval of the amendment number 4 to the agreement for professional services with Tri-Hydro Corporation as set forth in item number 14 of the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, the amendment number 4 to the agreement for professional services with Tri-Hydro Corporation is set forth in item 14 and approved.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right. We are on item number 15, approval of the bills from May 17th, 23 to June 6th, 23. Mrs. Strecker?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Handed out tonight was a set of bills along with attached to your agenda. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have on those bills.
Well, I had one question, but it's probably better left to the chief, fire chief, but he's not here.
And just for everybody's information, I did get a report from Fire Chief Lance Petch. He is out of the state or country as far as I know, maybe even on a honeymoon. So he did give me a report, but he's not present tonight as he normally is.
Well, that's a good excuse.
I
So
can-
did Mr. Estes know about this front range fire apparatus repair?
I can get back to you. What is your question?
Yeah, it's in the first set. I just wonder what it did for $10,000 is all.
Do you know what page that is?
6.
6. Page 6 of the first set.
I can ask Mike Laird tomorrow and tell him that.
Just says repairs, engine number 6. Update foam unit. And then it's cut off.
That's our newest Pierce engine, the one we bought before the ladder truck. That's an issue.
I'm just curious of what it was.
I will get an update and let you know.
Okay, thank you. If nobody else has any questions, I would make a motion to pay the bills as presented.
I have a motion from Councilman Kelly to approve the bills from May 17th, 23 to June 6th, 23 as presented here. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Deal. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approval of the bills from May 17th, 23 to June 6th, 23 as presented in item 15, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, that's approved. The bills from May 17th, 23 to June 6th of 23. We are next on item number 16, public comment. Is there anybody out there who has public comment? I don't see anything, but I will mention, and I did, Fire Chief Petch did give me a written report. The report was short but comprehensive, and he just said it's been fairly quiet. I'm thankful for that. They have the state convention next week, and if you'll recall, there's 2 Torrington teams going to state convention. And they did have training with Emergency Medical Services working a wreck with an entrapment. So that was a training session done between the fire department and the EMS. So that's what.
There's a
happened.
couple of cut-up vehicles over here by the ambulance building, is that?
Is that what that was for?
I'm wondering.
The requirement of the EMT class.
Say again?
That's a requirement of the EMT class.
I thought maybe you had it out there to scare the kids. We've done that before too, right?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if you'd allow me a point of privilege,
Sure.
I just would like to publicly thank our cemetery staff and anyone else that was involved in the preparation of our cemetery for Memorial Day. I didn't get a chance to go to the ceremony on Memorial Day, but I did get up there on Saturday, or Sunday rather, and I must say that great preparation and care, and a lot of volunteer work, I think, as well was done, and is done every year at our cemetery, and I just want to publicly thank those folks for making our cemetery one of the finest around in terms of its appearance and honoring of our fallen soldiers that have fought so valiantly for us. So thank you to those folks that help to keep, maintain, and beautify our cemetery.
Mayor, if I could just piggyback on that, I think I noticed this year there were some inmate crews from WMCI they were not last couple of years, I think, because of COVID, but it was nice to see Department of Corrections also assisting with that. So.
And Mr. Mayor, I think we need to thank Mr. Hawley and his department for taking care of Veterans Drive and getting that up to snuff for the ceremony. Thanks.
That is greatly appreciated, and I'll piggyback onto all of this. I too went up there. That thing looked beautiful. We did get the rain that Dennis was concerned about, which helped beautify the lawn because the pump had gone down for a point of.
Right before that, and Chris had got it fixed.
Okay, got it fixed, and we did get the rain. And I drove that Veterans Drive, and thank you, Mr. Hawley. That's not perfect, but it sure was passable, and it wasn't muddy, and I think it had recently rained, so thank you for that. So I agree with you. That cemetery presents well. It truly does. So thank you to all concerned who makes it that way. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. It looks like we've reached the point where we've completed all the items on the agenda. So this meeting is adjourned. Thank